You think I could borrow your charger real quick?
You want to borrow my charger?
Just want to charge up real quick.
The only charger I have.
Well, I'm going to be right here.
Yeah, for sure, bro.
Cool. Nice. Yeah, hey, just make sure to give it back, because,
I am Razio.
What's up, guys? Razio here, and I wanted to do a quick video because this is a topic that's been coming up quite a bit lately in a lot of channels, mostly World of Warcraft channels. And again, my channel is mostly about MMORPGs, but I am playing World of Warcraft, and this is something that I'm concerned about. So I figured I would share my opinion on it, so it's out there, like anyone really gives a shit, but here it is. I want to talk about borrowed power. Now, what a lot of people might wonder, first of all, is what is borrowed power? Borrowed power in an MMORPG is an entire system that's put into place in an MMO that once that expansion is over with, the system itself is completely gone. Now, a lot of people will say, yeah, but all power you get in MMORPGs is borrowed power, which I disagree. And the reason being is, if you look at World of Warcraft, as I'm playing right here, in the old expansions, like the original vanilla, in Burning Crusade, in Wrath of the Lich King, when you went to the next expansion when it was first released, you were weak again, but not because you lost power. All the legendaries and all the gear you got, if you got Blessed Blade of the Windseeker, if you got Sulphurus, if you got, full Nax 40 gear in vanilla, which not a lot of people did, and then you went to Burning Crusade, you still had all that gear, and it was still good. But what made you feel weaker was because everything you were facing was so much stronger, so you had to get stronger in turn. Now, contrast that to stuff like this, which I'm going to show you here in the game. System after system after system, which in my opinion is not good for games, and they're still repeating even in Shadowlands. So it's something that is a big controversial issue in Shadowlands right now. So for example, the Azerite system, right? This is the Azerite system for, you get Azerite gear and then you get random traits in this ring and then you lock it in. You can respec it, but eventually, you get better pieces of gear. There's best in slot, that type of thing, right? So this is a whole system. On top of another system here is you have the Heart of Azeroth too. A whole nother system, set of shit you have to get. And the reason why these are so bad, and then we have these too, right? Corruption, which does special effects as well. Really powerful effects. In fact, effects that have allowed certain classes to solo the latest raids, single bosses in normal mode now that they're so overgeared and everything. And, people stacking 20 mages and clearing heroic in seconds, seconds per boss. Stuff like that has been enabled because of these systems, which enabled your character to get quite overpowered if you built your character the right way. So that's something that the system itself isn't the problem. It's the fact that it goes away and it's not sustainable, right? This is a big issue because all this work you put into this, all this power you have isn't innate to your class that you picked, isn't innate to your character. And in this case, a lot of the times, a lot of this, especially corruption and, the Azerite gear, is all linked to RNG, which fortunately gear is going completely back to the way it used to be back in the early days of WoW in Shadowlands, as far as we know. So that's the RNG there is going to be fixed. Gear's going to be static and that kind of thing. But the reason why there are so many systems in Battle for Azeroth and we have so much battle fucking power is because it was an attempt to fix each one. So this system here was an attempt to fix this system here. A band-aid, if you will. And then corruption was an attempt to fix this system here in a lot of ways. So they just stacked systems on top of each other. The first time we saw Blizzard do this, and I get why they did it because they were trying, to not have to put so much balance on every individual class and instead balance these systems each expansion, which I think is a problem because ultimately it detaches you from your own character, and it causes issues ultimately, and it all goes away, so it's all meaningless anyway. They should bake everything into your character and let you customize your character. So Battle Powered is bad because you get weaker in the next expansion because all of this is just gone. Like it was never even in the game. That's shitty. That's a shitload of fuck, in fact. So anyway, I think it's really, really, really bad. Now, as we know, instead of just complaining about things, I'm not negative.
You serious?
I like to find solutions, boys. So, how would I fix this? Now, I was actually thinking about this overnight, right? So, obviously, this idea isn't the greatest, it isn't solid, but it's just a jumping off point and how I would fix this going into the future to prevent shit like this from happening, okay? So, first of all, we have a couple of issues people have faced that Blizzard has said that they run into, right, when they try to balance things. So first and foremost, they said the reason they got rid of tier sets was because then it would make dead slots, right, for an entire expansion where everyone wants a specific tier set, a specific 4-piece, and they want the specific ones because the best statted ones, right? And that locks it up. That excuse is actually bullshit. The reason they don't want to do it is because they're lazy. But if you look, like this, you've had this necklace all expansion. Whole fucking expansion. So that's a dead slot now. Cloak. You have to have this legendary cloak to even do the final raid. So that's a dead slot now. You pick up cloaks and can't get necklaces. So it's clear they're full of shit. In Legion, they did it with, the relic weapon. Well, not relic weapon, that's Final Fantasy. The artifact weapon was a dead slot. They made the weapon a dead slot, which was bad. And ultimately, the reason why Legion's artifact weapon ended up not working out in the end is because, again, yeah, you may have the cosmetic steal from it, but it's useless. It's not the entire artifact power system in Legion is not even in the game anymore. You can't get any of those special abilities that weapon had. So, how would I fix this? Well, if you're newer to World of Warcraft, and what I mean by newer, as in if you haven't been in the game, let me put it this way, the first time you started playing WoW was Cataclysm or later, then you're new to World of Warcraft, in my opinion. And let me show you something here, okay? So this is the talent system from Wrath of the Lich King. Okay, so you'd have a max level character would have 71 points to spend, right? And you could spend points if you want to be a tank. You're like, oh, okay, I want this, and and so on and so forth. You spec points in, and then once you had all your trees specced out, and a lot of these are passive traits like bonus percents to abilities and crits and hit chance and things like that. They had the glyph system, which I thought was great because the major glyphs and even the minor glyphs were meaningful. They changed how certain abilities worked. So how can we do something like this without 100% going back to this system? Now here's what my suggestion would be. Okay, so big brain, 400 IQ, let's go. So we have our standard talent system in the game, right? So you pick your spec. I would still have that. I like how they have this set up where each spec has access to specific abilities, right? That the other spec doesn't have. But at the same time, there are certain abilities that are across all the specs. I think that's they should keep that the way it is. Now, talents. Here's what I would do. Okay, to make a more permanent progression system going forward. I would take every single ability that's on this talent tree, right? That is passive. So isn't something you click, isn't something you press a button for. So for example, Voracious isn't one, it's just a passive ability. So you see it says passive right on the screen there. There are quite a few on here There's instant, you know, see, some of them have costs or channeled, and that's fine. But passive stuff, right? I would take all the passive talents off this list. I think everything on the talent tree should be active, something you have to press. So every line is an ability that you have to make a choice for. And I think that'll make them a little more meaningful. Okay, if everything is something you actually have to press. Then what I would do, and hear me out, because again, this is a very, you know, it's a fetus of an idea, if you will. So don't abort it quite yet. So what I would do is take something like this wheel that we have here for the Azurite system, right? Now you see how right now there are technically 4 rings on here. Let's make it 6. So you have 6 rings, right? That unlocks the same time at level 10 when you get, you know, this is talking Shadowlands, so you hit level 10 and you get your first talent, right? You get to pick your first active talent. Everything on this wheel should be a passive talent. So plus 5% to crit to something. You can fill these in from the passive talents you took out of the old talent tree, from stuff that used to be in major and minor glyphs that was all passive or kind of changed in ability, you know, and put it on here. And then this would also solve your tier problem. Because what I would do is I would make tier sets, right? So let's say you get a 4-piece of the Death Knight set, and you're a Death Knight. I don't know why you'd have the Death Knight set if you weren't a Death Knight. But you then, on one, let's say the outermost row, one of these abilities that's on the row, right, says 2-piece tier. It activates the 2-piece tier, right? Or whatever set you have. And that ability, that activate 2-piece for said tier set, doesn't appear until you're wearing 2 pieces. You can activate it. Now, in some cases, you're going to have it activated because it's the best out of all the things you could choose there. Sometimes we get tier bonuses that we don't like or that we don't think are as good as other things, so we won't use them. And then let's say 2 rows in, this row, right? The 4 pieces in there will appear there. And it only appears when you have the set bonus. So that prevents you from wearing like 2 pieces of 3 different sets throughout an expansion, because all the 2 pieces will always be on this, and all the 4 pieces will always be on this. So you can click them and activate them. This also means you have more freedom, because let's say you really like the 4-piece set bonus, but you don't like the 2 set. So you pick something else in your 2 set, but you can still have the 4 set activated. This also opens the window for Blizzard to add dungeon sets back, and maybe hidden sets around the world, right? That will increase that you can, you know, won't appear, like you won't know you have a set until all of a sudden you're wearing 2 pieces of like 2 blues, you know, that have the same name, they're from the same art style and everything. And all of a sudden you'll see on your tier tree that there's a 2-piece bonus you can activate. But again, you have to make that choice over something else passive that you were using. And I think this gives Blizzard more room to add things in the future, because then they can add more rings to this wheel for higher levels. If they add more levels again, go up from 60 to 70 in the expansion after Shadowlands, or find crafting patterns that enable more passives for certain classes, you know, to pick from. All kinds of shit. Even some of these abilities that you find here, right, could be part of these, like secondary stat bonuses and like this bloody Runeblade thing, right? Get more haste, stuff, and all this kind of stuff you could pick between. It would make you able to configure your character so much more and switch things up in the middle of a raid or a dungeon, depending on the boss fight. If you need more AoE, less AoE, you need more crit, you need more survivability, you can shift stuff around, and not just in your active press button talents, but in passives as well. I think that would help a lot. And then what I would do as far as Shadowlands is concerned, you can keep the covenants, but have every covenant, right, be able to be completed on a single character, the storyline for every covenant. That's a lot of content for one person to go through, and that's good. And once you complete an entire tree, an entire covenant, you permanently get one ability from that covenant on a ring. And then that way you can pick between all the different, if you have all the covenants unlocked and fully done, you can pick between abilities you want to use when you need them, right? And it's still linked to your character that way. And when the expansion's over, it doesn't go away. In fact, new players would want to go back to expansion and do those storylines to get those, if those abilities are still good or, you know, are desired by them. Like movement abilities, things like that. Okay? And then you still can pick one covenant to be associated with, if you want to. But then all the rewards from that are cosmetic, such as their gear set, you know, their transmog options, shit like that, right? That way, there's not one covenant that everyone chooses depending on what class they're playing. You avoid that whole debacle, and that way, it's a system that's not going to go away and has a lot of room for growth. Anyway, guys, that's my thoughts. I'm sure there are flaws and holes in this system, but again, I thought about it over fucking night last night, so cut me a goddamn break, okay? But anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. Check out my Twitch. I stream at least once a week, so I'm trying to... It's almost always Thursdays now, but I'm trying to weasel in some other days as well, so keep an eye on that. And I always post on my YouTube when I'm streaming and in my Discord. So if you want to become part of my Discord, just jump into any Twitch stream, do ! Discord. You can get the link and come on in and come hang out with us and shoot the shit, spread your toxic masculinity all around. Outside of that, guys, I really appreciate the support. And as always, my friends, keep it real.